Welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast with Zach Palmer, the show where we explore the strategies, insights, and stories that empower you to grow your business, strengthen your relationships, and elevate your health. Because growth isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become along the way. Now, today, I am thrilled to welcome Andrew Anderson. Andrew's not only a personal friend of mine, my coach, but he's also an author, a speaker, a master teacher and trainer, a community and spiritual leader, and a certified life transformation and business productivity coach. As a master practitioner of mental emotional release therapy and a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming, he has coached some of the country's top leaders and coaches and helped hundreds of clients break through limiting beliefs, transform their lives and businesses, and find lasting freedom. He's driven by his life mission, which is simple: to influence as many people as possible to live a higher level of spiritual strength and create a life by design. Let's dive in and take another step on your journey to perpetual growth. Andrew, welcome. Super excited to have you here today, my friend.
To take you everywhere with me because you make me feel better about me as you read my bio. I just wonder what you could do if you were doing this live. You're my new. I'm gonna bring you. You're my. I don't know what. I
My
don't know what you
MC.
are. Yeah, MC, groupie.
My
Like
brain just went to this episode of The Family Guy where Peter gets like theme music. So every time he starts walking, a theme music comes on.
yeah, I
Everybody.
need you to be my theme guy, my background dancer.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Andrew, I'm super excited to have you today, my friend. Before I open with my traditional comment that my audience and guests are all too familiar with, I want to encourage everybody to stick around because at the end of this conversation, or at some point during the podcast episode today, Andrew and I have a really special announcement, something that we are going to talk about, something that we've been working on behind the scenes for quite a while. So you want to make sure that you stay tuned and listen all the way through because not only is Andrew going to provide you with a ton of value and insights, but us together are going to share something that is truly unique and spectacular. So, with that said, Andrew, I always love to lead in with the same question. If you would, I'd love to have you share with the audience just a little bit about your story history. Where did you start in business? How did you end up where you are at today? Where are you at today? What does that look like? And what were some of the trials, the tribulations, the challenges, the wins, the successes, the turning points, the catalysts that created the man that you are, and all the things that you do to contribute to the world?
Yeah, let's do it. Uh, Literally 3 nights ago, 2 nights ago, Sunday night, my wife and I were having this awesome, deep conversation. And she said, "Hey, you know that story you always tell about how you got started?" She said, "What if you just didn't tell it anymore? Or what if you could tell it from a place of, instead of the negative energy of where you were, you could tell it from a place of where it doesn't drag you down." So I want the listeners to know that I am taking my wife's advice, and I'm going to tell this story differently than I've ever told it before. And Zach, you get to hear it first, and your
Mm.
listeners here, they get to hear it as well. So this story starts in my parents' basement, and I love that 28-year-old self. I used to pity him as of like even a few hours ago until my coach kicked my butt today and helped me cry myself into a place of not pity, but into a place of love and acceptance. That 28-year-old version I love that guy. I love what he went through. And this was about 11, 12 years ago for me. And I was in a really, at the time, a dark place. And I was going through a separation of a 7-year marriage that turned into a divorce. I was no longer seeing my 3 little girls, ages 5, 3, and 1 month old. And I was no longer teaching in the classroom. And I believed that I had failed. And even up until a few hours ago today, I still kind of looked at that time in my life as failure. And Zach, I could give you all the backstories to what happened and whose fault to this and that. Like none of that matters. What matters most to me today is we all have a beginning story. And that beginning story, that Genesis story, starts just like if you read the Bible, Adam and Eve, they fell and they had a fall, and we all do. And it's not like, oh, well, plan A didn't work out, so now we have to go to plan B. Like the falling is plan A. And I love that 28-year-old kid that fell my way forward into a new career, into my now beautiful marriage and family, and into being able to be with people like you. So that's where it got started. 28 years old, living in my parents' basement, believing I had failed everybody.
I don't know if I can leave it at that. I know you're trying to honor your wife here, but I'm like, there's power in that vulnerability because so many people, well, nobody's been exactly there.
Yeah.
We've all lived life. Everybody's had their own struggles, and we all
Yeah.
do have our own story. I mean, the biggest thing that differentiates one person from the next is what they do with it.
Exactly.
And so, if you would, tell us a little bit about what led to the basement
Mhm.
and what came from it, like where you are at today and what the life that you are living looks like and how you are contributing at the level you are.
So, the difference now between then is I took 100% responsibility and blame for the marriage falling apart, and now it's like, oh, I understand that I'm 100% to blame and she's 100% to blame because we are all 100% accountable for what we bring and what we allow or don't allow in any relationship or in any setting. And I I struggled. I had all kinds of emotions and beliefs about myself. Like I didn't love myself back then. I didn't believe that I was as good of a teacher or a father or a husband or a neighbor or a community member or church member. I didn't believe any of that stuff. I really hated myself. And I was living in a self perpetuating, self betraying cycle of afraid of who I was and never being good enough. And I didn't struggle with a lot of things that some people struggle with when their marriage is ending, like drugs and alcohol and addiction or cheating, or I wasn't kind to myself. And that I took that out on my wife at times. And sometimes our little girls, had, that, going on. And I was just, as we all are, I was projecting onto others what I didn't love and was afraid of in me. And
Mhm.
she couldn't take it anymore. And I now know that she was struggling with her own things, and that's okay. And like we were young, and and again, I don't pity that self. I love him, I accept him, and I realize that I'm so grateful for what I went through and what I learned and the support that I had to get me to where I am today.
Mhm. Well, one, thank you for your vulnerability. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you sharing that. I think that is, and you've heard me say it before, I think vulnerability is a superpower. And I think it not only humanizes us, but creates a definite element of relatability because we all have our own internal struggles.
Right.
And I think one of the greatest disservices that humans do to themselves and each other is never taking the time to explore those beliefs and how those beliefs affect your day-to-day life decisions and how they create the patterns of how you show up, of the obstacles that we quite literally create and manifest, and or the successes that we experience. And that's not just in business, but in life as a whole, in our intimate relationships as parents, friendships, leaders in business, in the church, in any context.
Right.
So I think it's I know that what you do is a beautiful gift and something that, I mean, candidly, everybody can benefit from. And one thing that I don't know if people recognized or really caught on to is the fact that you mentioned you just got off a call with your coach.
Right. Like hours ago before this recording.
Exactly. And you're still working through some of those beliefs, even after everything that you've accomplished and the impact that you've made. And I think that that is a really profound message in and of itself because I think people, maybe I'm hallucinating, but on some level tend to think like, I see a coach, I learn this thing, life is good forever.
Yeah.
And the reality is our brains don't work that way. I mean, we are masters at telling ourselves stories and creating meaning. Our brains are a giant meaning machine. And if we don't ever take the time to explore how those things are showing up, we tend to live life on repeat on some level or another. It's like that movie. I think it's not The Day After Tomorrow. gosh, shoot, what's it called? It's one with Tom
Groundhog
Cruise.
Day?
No, well, it's just like
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Groundhog's Day. And there's
Groundhog
another one
Day.
with Tom Cruise where he wakes up and he's in the same war fighting these alien things over and over and over. But anyway, the same idea. But we have to constantly challenge our belief systems and the stories and how things are showing up. So those life events, those circumstances, you know, talk to the audience about the moment that you made a decision to go a new direction, what that direction looked like, what it is today, and how you're serving people the way that you are.
So this is one of my favorite moments. I'm sitting on the bed in the basement. It wasn't even a bedroom, just a bed in the basement, my parents' house. And I'm holding this very book right here, Viktor
Okay.
Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And for anyone that hasn't read it, Stephen Covey, who read a book a day, literally a book a day at the end of his life, my good friend Kevin Hall was the vice president of sales at Franklin Covey. And he was at Stephen Covey's house, the end of Stephen's life. And Kevin says there were books everywhere, all over Stephen's house. And Kevin asked him, "What are you doing with all these books?" He said, "I'm reading them." He's like, "What do you mean you're reading them?" He's like, "Yeah, I read a book a day." And Kevin was just inspired by that, right? Stephen Covey reading a book a day at the end of his life. He asked him, he said, "What's your favorite book?" And Stephen Covey said, "Next to Holy Writ, next to Scripture itself, Man's Search for Meaning." The story of Viktor
Mm.
Frankl, the survivor of Nazi concentration camps, who wrote this book in the 3 years that he was there in his mind and on scratch pieces of paper, came out of the camps as a free man and penned the words of this very book in 9 days.
Oh,
And I sat in my parents' basement. I call it my perceived place of imprisonment. And I read these words by Viktor Frankl. He says, "We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." And as I sat on that bed, I just realized, I can stay in my own personal prison here. I can blame myself because I wasn't blaming anyone else but me. Or I can use this as an opportunity to build a solid foundation here at rock bottom. And that's what I did. And I decided that I wanted to be happy. And when people started asking me, "Hey, how you doing?" I'd say, "I'm happy." And I wasn't faking it, trying to make it, right? Fake it till I hate that phrase. I was acting as a happy person acts, knowing that if I continued to not fake it but act happy, then I would begin to be happy. And so for me, that moment of taking 100% responsibility for my attitude in this situation that I was in was a game changer for me.
hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there's a couple things that come to mind. One of my mentors said, if we're going to blame, we need to learn to blame effectively.
Mm,
And more often than not, it's the opposite. People are blaming the external. They're a victim of their circumstances. You, on the other hand, it sounds like had created more of your own internal prison by putting too much
right.
blame on yourself and taking too much responsibility. And like anything, there is a certain level of, I despise this word, but it's still most appropriate, balance in life. Um, but taking ownership over, it sounds like letting go of the blame and then moving to what am I going to do now? So, one thing I got to share really quick too. I had the opportunity to listen to this woman that was a Holocaust survivor, years in Nazi concentration camp. She was 104 years old. I
Wow.
saw her speak at a friend's high school graduation, and it was one of the most profound, tear-wrenching speeches I've ever witnessed. I mean, just you, you talk about the strength of the human spirit, and she was an incredible example of that. So I really appreciate you bringing that story up and sharing that book and passage. What I'm curious about and would love to have you expand upon is how did that lead you into coaching? You wanted to be happy. And I know for me, one of the reasons I started studying behavioral psychology and neurolinguistic programming, and the list goes on, was, I said externally that I wanted to be able to help my clients, which is true, 100%. But the thing that I was trying to ignore was I really want to understand what was going on in my own mind.
Yeah.
So for you, where did coaching come from? What was the impetus? And then not only that, you didn't just study one discipline, you became a master of multiple. Talk to us a little bit about that turning point and then what the last 12 years of serving hundreds of people and top performers and executives and athletes and all that's looked like.
So the impetus was this invisible tattoo written on my forehead that I didn't know was there in high school. And it said future life coach. And that didn't really exist. People weren't talking about life coaches in the early 2000s when I was in high school, but I had these girls that would come to me and tell me about getting date raped, or a best friend that would tell me that had tried to take his life because he was attracted to men, and how hard it was for him to tell me that because I'm a man. I said, "Well, are you attracted to me?" And he's like, "No, you're my best friend." I don't care. So this has been a part of me my entire life, and I've been attracting people and helping them in different ways. I taught religious education to teenage kids in high school for 6 years. That was my first career. And I was getting my master's degree in education. I was just literally receiving it in the mail. We moved back home to Boise, Idaho. We were having baby girl number 3, and that's when everything just came crumbling down. And I lost my job. I was in a place of deep depression and anxiety, and I lost my marriage, and I lost my daily interaction with my little girls. And my brother thought, as a consultant, right, they get paid to tell people what to do. He thought this would be a great time for me to get a job where I get to talk to people all day, every day, selling on 100% commissions, and literally knocking on people's door and telling them that I could help them. And so I got into residential real estate sales. And landing at Keller Williams, I was introduced to all things, thank you, Gary Keller, personal growth and development. And I started devouring the books. And while I'm in my parents' basement, I got into an apartment and I started, like growing. And I thought that I was just going to create this whole new life. And I started doing it. And I realized I loved everything about it except for real estate. I could care less about houses. And so after a year of selling, the the president of that brokerage here in Boise, she offered me a job to start coaching new agents, because she knew that if you can grow a business owner, then the business will grow as well, and the business will only grow to the extent that you do. And so she just put me in this seat, and I just started coaching new agents. So that was my actual paid impetus. That's the genesis story of coaching for me. That was back in 2015. So it's been 10 years now.
Hmm. You said something really wise and really important.
Ooh, tell me. I didn't hear it.
This was gold. And I hope everybody else caught into this too. Your business will only grow to the extent that you do. Hmm. And I know as a, high level, high achieving, go, 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 Mach 10 hair on fire entrepreneur, we tend to get overly focused on our business. And sometimes it can be at the sacrifice of other areas of our life.
Mhm.
How do you find that? What is the convergence point between all of these different pieces of life? I mean, we both are familiar with the wheel of life. The audience may or not be, but from a high level, you're looking at each, category, so to speak, your spirituality, your intimate relationship, parenting, your hobbies, your business, your wealth and investing. Like, what is the convergence point between all these areas? And for not to use that word that must not be used again, but how do people really effectively find balance? I mean, you know my take. I think balance is BS, but I'm not going to hijack this. I want to hear what your thoughts are.
The way that I do it is I put a lot of eyeballs, wingmen and women. I have a sister. I have a wife. I have an incredible amount of accountability with my clients. And I want people to be giving me as much feedback as I possibly can. I also have 7 incredible mirrors called children that are showing me exactly how I'm showing up every single day. And I am smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to know myself well enough to see all of my opportunities to be learning and growing. I literally was on the phone with my coach earlier today, and I'm not kidding. I was in tears because I was experiencing, like, I was suffering so much in what I'm experiencing with one of my family members. And you get to this point, right, where you either break something or you break down. And that breakdown process is humility. The word humility comes from humble, H-U-M, and humility, humble, humus means of the earth. And before something can grow, we have to break the ground to plant the seed. The seed has to break to sprout. That sprout has to break through the ground again to reach light and oxygen. And then the bud has to break to flower, and the flower has to break to release the seeds. And then it all happens over and over again. And so as much as it is a challenge to watch myself go through my own breakdowns, I just put enough people around me that can help me see when they need to happen and love me through them. And when I can do that, then I don't have to get worried about balance because I know that I am in integrity. And I love that word from an engineering standpoint, right? Like everything is right. I'm in integrity. It's not perfect, it's not balanced, but I am right. I am right with me. I am right with my wife. I'm right with my clients, my children, my friends, and ultimately I am right with God. That's how I get to the place of balance, which I call integrity.
I have a question I want to ask. What I'm curious about is some part of me suspects that a lot of people struggle with the stories, and again, it becomes that self-deprecating cycle where we beat ourselves up. And integrity is such a beautiful word, with such a profound meaning, and I love it. I mean, it's something that has become an integral component of my life and outlook, and
What you did
everything
there,
that I
that was
do.
good.
You
That was
know,
good.
but at the same time, it also has the power to draw you back to where you were. If we become so focused on the act of living in integrity, you can start beating yourself up for the mistakes that you make that move you out of alignment with it, right? So, how do you navigate that when
This is where I was
integrity brings
at.
you to awareness?
This is where my wife brought me Sunday night and my coach brought me today.
Hmm.
I told him, I said, why does Sherry, like, what is it? And he's like, your identity. She was telling me this. She said, your identity is built on being that 28-year-old kid, going through divorce, living in your parents' basement. That's not who you are today. She said, that's not how I see you, but that's how your book starts. It's how you lead off every speaking gig and podcast that you do. She said, that's not who you are. It helped you become who you are, but it's not who you are. And so she gave me permission to recreate the story that I am not my failures. I am not my weakest moments. I am not rock bottom. Those helped me get to where I'm at today. And so with my coach today, then the next step of that was, instead of pitying him, can you love him and accept him and recognize the integral part that he played in helping you become who you are today, just like you do with your clients? Because once we stop judging and we just start loving and accepting, then we can truly be present here and now, and we can live into the identity of what we are showing up as today.
That is probably the most eloquent and beautiful explanation I could have ever anticipated. That was extremely
Well, I
well
paid
said.
the price of health to get here with the
Uh,
last, 10, 11 years of my life and what I went through on Sunday with my wife and what I went through with my coach today. So thank you for the compliment. The price
mhm.
has been paid and it's being received. So I trust that I can share that with others moving forward as well.
Well, I love that it comes back to love. Love yourself for who you were, because it's probably the exact opposite of what most people instinctively do, which is hate and resent the person that
And
they were. And the
and
more
I
that you
and I,
project,
I will and I will love myself
yeah,
when
yeah,
I
exactly.
achieve, when I
Hmm.
become, when I do, when I
Hmm.
have,
Hmm.
rather than saying I love that version of myself because I get to be who I am today.
Yeah, that energetic shift is palpable. I mean, I can feel it just through this conversation, which, I mean, I can feel it in myself. I can feel it through you. That's um that's a really amazing gift. Thank you.
You see, Marianne Williamson said, Zach, and it's a quote that I've shared with you in the past, and I'll share it again and again and again.
Hmm.
She says that as we are liberated from our own fears, now I'm adding to her quote, okay? As we are liberated from our own fears, now Andrew's commentary, which really means we're loving ourselves. Okay. As we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. So as I went through this experience today, working on me, I'm only a half step ahead of you. And as your coach and leader, I can now turn back around and offer my hand, and you get to experience the same places of liberation from fear. And now your audience gets to experience it as well. This is what's
Hmm.
so powerful about human connection.
Hmm.
So I want to thank you for allowing me and pushing me and challenging me to tell the story, going
Hmm.
deeper than I really even wanted to, so that you could experience and we could give that gift to others.
Hmm.
Everybody deserves to be liberated from fear and to love and accept themselves rather than judging and condemning.
So that's perfect. That transition is outstanding because it leads right into my next question. So before we step into exploring our special announcement, stay tuned. Um, I would love if you would highlight, how do people do that? And more appropriately, maybe more specifically, what does a coaching experience look like with you? When somebody gets started, how do you identify where are we going? Why are the reasons that they come to you? What are some of the things they might be experiencing in their life? What do you do initially to evaluate and determine what steps or actions or tools you're going to utilize or take with them?
So
Um,
let's
Talk to
do
us
this.
about it.
Let's do this real play. Okay.
Oh boy.
And so you and I met at some event, and I was like, "Man, this is one of the best dressed men I've ever seen in my entire life." And that was like my first impression of you. I was like, "Man, he's got it all together, right? He's got it all together."
Uh,
And I don't think we had a conversation at the event.
mm-mm,
We were in that room for an entire day. I think we were sitting literally one seat apart from each other,
mhm.
and and then you just got emails from me for the next few months. And what was it that you saw or heard that made you reach out? Why did you want to connect with me as a coach?
That's a really interesting question. And it's also interesting from this perspective because what the audience may or may not know about me is I have been coaching for well over a decade at this stage and have literally worked with thousands of clients in one-to-one group format, live from stage, everything. And so when it comes to me reaching out to a coach, what people need to know and understand is I have to have the utmost confidence and respect for that individual for me to determine that I'm going to make the decision to reach out and start working with them. So I hope on however that comes out, it comes out as a compliment. But in other words, I'm really picky and I will like eat somebody alive if they're not the right coach. So uh, applause to you. What stuck out to me in the moment? Um, I don't.
What were you going through? What was it that was present for you that said, I need help from Andrew?
I was going through a major life transition. I mean, I had just started opening a new business. and was having a variety of different relationship struggles and was beating myself up for my parenting. And I mean, a little bit of everything. It wasn't bottom by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a little bit of an identity crisis trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to be and what I wanted to create and what life I want to live. I mean, that's probably the best way to put it. And, I was there at the, more or less inception point of looking for new clients and starting to build my business and putting myself in rooms of other successful entrepreneurs. And there was just something about like the word that came to my mind the entire time that you were talking was presence. There was something about the level of conviction that you had when you stood up and talked about what you do and the way that you serve your clients. It was not, I didn't receive this egotistical aspect of things, but more just a genuine love and desire to serve people. There was phenomenal poise. You were clear, you were articulate. There was a lot of things that I think I would say I wanted to model and feel and within myself that I saw in you. And I think that is probably the best way I could put it. I hadn't thought about it that deeply until this moment.
Good. So you just answered the question that you asked me. Why do people come to you? And they come to me when they have had massive success in their life. And now they're at a place of transition. Relationship, family, career, health. I mean, spirituality. We have covered all of those, Zach, in the year that we've been working together. You think about it. And some of it without even me talking about it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And some of it, you're just doing it on your own.
Yeah.
And so they come to me when, again, they have problems that money can't solve. You can't throw money at a relationship or your children or your health. Like, I mean, you can, but how well does it really work?
Right.
And so they come to me when they want to change things on the outside, but they don't know what's wrong on the inside. They don't understand what are the deeply held beliefs and emotions that I've been suppressing that no other coach, counselor, therapist, or church leader has been able to help me get through. And then we solve the problems that money can't. And then ironically, they end up making a buttload of money because their business only grows to the extent that they do.
You do. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why people come to me. And what we start doing is identifying, how did you get here? What are the stories, the beliefs? We use the NLP, the mental and emotional release, and we dive deep and we spend a considerable amount of time, about 6 hours over 2 days, doing what I call the ultimate breakthrough experience. So you can literally let go of neural pathways that have been wiring and firing together, creating beliefs and emotions and chemicals in your body that are putting you in a state that you don't want to be in. We let go of all that. Then we begin to create new neural pathways, a new map of success in your unconscious mind so that it can go to work for you. Just like it keeps your body going, we got to keep that spirit growing.
I love that. That's a perfect explanation. It almost feels wrong to shift gears here in the moment, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's still an opportunity for us to both serve. So thank you for sharing all that, Andrew. I mean, it was beautiful, insightful, inspiring, powerful. And when we wrap up the conversation, I want to give you an opportunity to share how our listeners can reach out to you individually, and if they want to explore what a coaching experience looks like with Mr. Andrew L. Anderson, then I would love to provide that opportunity. Now, if we could just take a few minutes, I would love to talk a little bit about something new that Andrew and I are creating. Now, as Andrew mentioned, we've been working together for about the last year. Andrew's been my coach. He's become an outstanding friend. And I had this idea.
Well, hold on. Can I interrupt?
Yes, please do.
I feel like we are co-hosting this podcast.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Which is great. Like you and I, like we do a lot of the same things. So
yeah,
I want to share how did we get here, right?
Yeah, please do.
This came out of like a lot of work, and it's me just really helping you focus on what is the most important thing that you could be doing that would be building you and your business and the life that you're creating. Like that's really important. Is there anything there that you want to share from the back end that would be helpful for the listeners to know before we tell them what it is that we're doing?
What Andrew just said from a high level is of course, surprise, shocking, really insightful and really important. It was what was the inception point, the impetus behind this particular idea, where'd the inspiration come from? And as we've been discussing, there's a lot of things that I've done. I've had some pretty significant accomplishments in my life, and I hit a critical turning point, and I just got to take a step back and go, what do I really want to do? I love being a business consultant. I love helping to build sales teams and strategies. I mean, it's something that I really enjoy, but I still always feel like there's something missing. And I think a lot of people can relate to this in today's world, as business owners, as C-level executives. It can get pretty lonely. And especially now as a byproduct of the internet, we don't have to travel as much anymore, or at least in many instances. So, without that sense of community, um, you can feel isolated. And it inspired me to go back to an idea that I had way back in the fitness industry. And I took a group of clients to Hawaii and I created this great experience where it was like, what I wanted to do in short was when people would come back from vacation, my clients, and they would say, man, I feel like I need a vacation to recover from my vacation. And I'm like, well, why? Why don't
Yeah.
you do both? So I'm like, let's combine the best sights, taste, sounds, experiences of a traditional vacation with a little bit of fitness and education. So we went to Hawaii, did 3 morning workouts on the beach, 3 educational seminars on the lanai, and then did all these incredible active guided tours in the island. Nepali sunset dinner cruise and hike the sleeping giant and into the hidden falls and snorkeling too. I mean, luau's, all the stuff, right? And it was really incredible. And I'm going, man, I want to create something like that, but in this instance is just for men. I met other men of high integrity, of high moral drive and ethics, where you have a different energy. And this is not in any way rejecting the feminine element. I mean, it's a critical component. It's so we can come back and show up better for you, I think is one of the major points. And it's getting this brotherhood of men together that come together and have this absolutely transformative experience, and not just in the things that you do, and we're doing some really amazing activities, but also in leadership development. Leadership's a broad term. It's not just, leadership in your business, but leadership of yourself,
Yeah.
leadership in your health, in your wealth and investments, in your relationship, in your parenting, in your spirituality, in every piece of life. And it was exciting to me because it's things I love to talk about. It's what I love to coach about. And now I get to combine amazing experiences with an incredible group of men that you will never forget. And we get to build each other together. And I thought, we need to do this. And I
Yeah.
said, and I was just sharing the idea with Andrew, and you said, I loved it. It was perfect because he read my mind.
What did I say? I don't remember. I don't remember the good things I
I was
say.
telling you, I had this super excited. I'm like, here's what I want to do. And you're like, I want in.
Yeah.
Look, let's do this. And I'm like, that's
I
perfect
want to.
because
I want to do it.
in my mind, I'm like, I wanted him to partner with me when I was saying this too. So that's it. We came together and we decided to put on this incredible 5-day men's retreat. It's 4 nights. It's all about getting out of your current environment, that pattern interrupt of doing something different, being around new people, but then being around these other experts to guide and create this uniquely curated experience where, one, you're doing these things that you might do maybe once in a lifetime or once on vacation, but all of them together. And then some really unique stuff that outside of some stuff that you might not ever even think of. And combining that with other men and combining that with these leadership conversations and breakthrough sessions and masterminding environment, and all in a really exclusive, beautiful resort and private chefs. And we're going to have all the things. But that was a little bit of the desire, where it came from, what we've created, what we're now formally announcing to the world that I'm super excited about. Um,
You know,
I'd love to
something
share your
that came to
take
my
too.
mind. It's like, you. I think a lot of the people that are listening to your podcast and that will come to this event, these are the guys that go above and beyond. They are romantics. They do things for anniversaries and birthdays. Like they plan really cool stuff for their partner and for their family. And then it's like, what about a honeymoon for you? Like
Yeah.
this is like a man, like a honeymoon for you. Like we're creating like the man's honeymoon, like a honeymoon for you, honeymoon for the man. So I want you to run with that, and we'll put it into our marketing system. All of it. Like it's time for you to plan and enjoy and like fall in love. Like I was crying with my coach today and giving myself love and having that ultimate breakthrough. Like it's time to celebrate you. Like let's have a honeymoon for you, the man's honeymoon.
That's hilarious. I like that. I mean, it really is that opportunity to just take a step back, break through the isolation, have some absolutely unbelievable experiences,
Yeah.
and work on yourself in the process, and come back. that next level version of yourself.
Not needing a vacation or a break from a retreat or event that you went to that was so much that you couldn't even like re-engage. Like that's what happens with most events and
Mhm.
experiences. Like that's wrong. We want you to come back with your cup overflowing so you're ready to give and serve and lead and love.
I love that. That's so brilliant. I mean, and that's so true too. I mean, some of my mentors put on some of the most incredible immersive experiences that I've ever been to, but my brain is freaking cooked and overloaded by the time I get back. Whereas the beauty in what we're putting together is that integration of the two, where you get the best of both worlds and you get to come back full of that much more joy, fulfillment, have a new community of other men to hold you accountable to living that higher version of yourself and have stories to tell for a lifetime. Well, my friend, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. I'm going to have you back again so we can talk a little bit more about you. So, thank you all for our audience spending time with us on the Perpetual Growth Podcast. And a big shout out to my friend and coach, Andrew Anderson, for bringing so much value to today's conversation. Andrew, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about what you're working on?
Yeah. LinkedIn, Instagram, my website. You can go check out my book, Strength of the Oak, Strength of the Willow on Amazon. I'm all over. And certainly you can just ask Zach and he'll put links to all of those places that you can find me in the show notes. And it's just an honor, Zach. I want you to know, and I want your listeners to know that if you are engaged with Zach as a listener, as a friend, in any capacity, you're engaged with one of the great ones. This man doesn't want me to say this, and that's okay, but he is truly one of the great leaders of our generation. And I know that because of how he's leading himself and his family and those that he serves in the workplace. And stay engaged because wherever Zach's going, you want to go to. I promise that.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you sharing that from the bottom of my heart. And we will be sure to get all of the links and resources that you guys need, whether you're intrigued and would like to hear more about our Limitless Man adventure retreats, or if you want to reach out to Andrew and consider bringing him on as a coach, which I can tell you would be one of the best investments that you can possibly make in yourself. Now, if this episode sparked something for you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and help us reach even more people on their growth journey. And remember, growth doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. We'll see you next time.